allowed to use that.
What do you mean?
And you've got to have an operator's licence, haven't you?
Yeah.
Have you got it?
Yeah, of course I have.
You've got an operator's licence.
Can you show
Operator's ID, it's called.
Huh?
Operator's ID, it's called.
Yes. You have to show it.
Why?
Because we're going to require it. Is it shown on the drone?
You're going to require it for what?
So if you're flying a drone,
Yeah.
which is not a toy,
Yeah.
or is over 250 grams, and I suggest that's probably not a toy if it's got a video thing on it.
249 gram.
So is that your... Yeah, but if it's over 250 grams,
which is
not a toy,
yeah,
and I suggest with all that, that's probably not a toy.
Yeah.
So it does have to have an operator's licence.
Correct.
So have you got your operator's licence, and is it stamped on it?
Do you think that I don't have one?
No, it's got to be stamped on it, and you've got to be able to show it to us.
Yeah, if you suspect me of a crime.
No, it's on the civil aviation stuff. So if you've got it and you're flying it,
yeah,
then you should be able to demonstrate your operator's ID and have it stamped on that.
And if you suspect me of a crime, then I have to show you.
That is the law.
No, it's not.
It is.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No.
The sergeant's demand for the drone operator ID raises concerns about how his powers are being applied. He suggests he's entitled to see it simply because he asked, which doesn't accurately reflect the legal position in the UK. Requiring someone to produce documents generally depends on having a clear legal basis, typically linked to specific statutory powers or reasonable suspicion of an offence. Without identifying that basis, the demand risks appearing unfounded. Rather than clearly articulating the grounds for the request, the interaction relies on authority alone, which can come across as pressure rather than lawful enforcement. When a senior officer struggles to explain the legal footing behind a demand, it undermines confidence in how those powers are being understood and exercised.
Should we have a look?
Yeah, let's have a look.
Cool, fantastic.
Have you got an operator's licence?
Yeah, of course I have, yeah.
Cool, alright. It's got to be stamped on it.
Well,
it's got to be shown on
by
it.
you asking for it suggests that you think I've committed an offence.
No, just if you're flying
You can't just take one point out of the legislation.
No, if you're flying it.
I'm not flying it.
That is the... No, but you were.
No one.
Oh, we've had multiple people come in saying you were.
Well, I haven't.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I suspect you were.
You suspect I was?
Yes,
So
because I've had multiple people come in and say that you were.
So you suspect I was flying the drone?
And I don't think they just made that up.
Well, they did. So you suspect,
They did, okay.
So you suspect I was flying the drone and committing an offence?
No, I suspect you were flying the drone.
Yeah, to tell you about it.
You do?
No, I don't.
Yes, because I can require to see that.
Under what law?
I just told you, it's there.
What section?
Oh, I can look it up.
Yeah, let's have a look.
But I'm not going to, because I'm going to just require this, Louis. And if you do not, then I may just have to arrest you under that offence.
Well, if you're going to arrest me, then I'll give you it, but I will speak to my solicitor afterwards.
Fine.
Yeah.
All right. So are you refusing to provide that? Okay, fantastic.
Just so you know, I've been through this before.
Yeah, I know.
Last time I got £3,500.
Okay.
Okay, so you still want to go down this route?
So I want to go down the route of proving that you're legally using that drone.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, but you need to show it to us. You need to show that proof that you are legally using that drone.
Under what law?
Under that law.
This law?
Yeah.
The sergeant's attempt to rely on the Air Traffic Management and Unmanned Aircraft Act 2021 raises concerns because it appears to lean heavily on an unverified third-party complaint rather than clearly articulated grounds. Under the law, reasonable suspicion generally requires an objective basis, something more than hearsay alone, to justify demands for identification or further action. In this case, that basis isn't clearly explained. Instead of identifying the relevant provision or clarifying how it applies, the response shifts toward the threat of arrest. That's a significant escalation and should be grounded in clear, evidence-based reasoning, not uncertainty. When authority is asserted without a well-defined legal foundation, it risks undermining the legitimacy of the interaction, especially when the person being challenged appears to understand the boundaries being tested.
What section?
I don't know what section. Well, we can look it up.
If you've got it, why don't you just show it to us?
So,
fantastic. Cool. Yeah, we need to actually.
we want it to jot it down.
We need to see that it's linked to you and not just someone else's drone and just a code on it. We need. To
I have given you my details.
So we need to see that you've got an operator's ID.
Yeah.
And that it's the same as the one on the drone.
Yeah.
Okay. And we need to know that that operator's ID that you show us is actually yours and
it
not
just.
It
It doesn't have to be mine. It doesn't have to be mine.
It does. You have
does
to
not.
have an operator's ID.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
The operator of the person who
operates the drone.
Yeah, so there's a difference between the operator and the flyer. So there's a flyer ID and there's an operator ID.
No, you're operating it.
No.
Yeah, I think we're getting into a semantic argument.
No.
You're operating it.
The operator is the person that owns it.
You're operating it at that point.
The operator is the person that owns it.
No.
Yes.
No. Otherwise, it would be the owner.
No. Operator is the person that's responsible for the drone, owns the drone, and you have a flyer.
No.
Yes, there's two different things. A flyer ID, operator
Flyer
ID.
ID and operator ID are two separate things.
Exactly.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But an operator ID is from the person who's actually operating the drone at that time.
That's not true.
It's not the same as a flyer ID.
That's not true.
No, it's not. I suggest you read the legislation again, Sergeant.
After the threat of arrest led News Now Yorkshire to produce the operator ID, the sergeant's continued focus on whether the ID was specifically linked to the individual suggests a misunderstanding of Civil Aviation Authority regulations. Under Civil Aviation Authority rules, an operator ID is issued to the registered operator and is used to ensure accountability for drone use. However, it is not framed in the way the officer appears to imply, where it must be directly tied to a separate form of personal identification during the interaction. But why continuing to press this point after the ID had been provided? The emphasis shifts away from a straightforward regulatory check and toward trying to retroactively justify the initial intervention rather than reassessing its basis.
Just to protect your sergeant, if you go onto Google and put drone, Audit police station, you'll see me in the papers.
Yeah.
Right? I was arrested for this exact same thing.
Okay.
Right? And I was released without charge, and they paid me a lot of money for it. So just protect your sergeant a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but we still would need to confirm that operator ID is valid and linked to an actual person who's the operator rather than just some.
But I don't have to tell you who the operator is.
But we would need to confirm that drone.
And how would you confirm that?
Well,
unless I told you who owns the drone.
Well,
because it's just a code.
Yeah, so because how would otherwise I would know that you've not just written some random digits on a bit of paper?
That's why, if you suspect me of an offence,
which would be flying the drone without an operator's ID.
Do you suspect that though?
Well, actually, I actually don't, because I think you generally wouldn't be silly enough to do it, and you show me there is a code on it.
Yeah.
But of course, how can I?
But you would also have to have reasonable suspicion. For instance,
the fact that you're not confirming
I'm
that
walking
code
down.
is valid.
I'm walking down the street.
Or allow me to see it.
I'm walking down the street. I could have a weapon in my pocket.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a whole
you don't know.
thing.
You don't know unless you search me.
Yeah, but
no. Let me finish, sir.
But he did the same example earlier, and I said actually that's a bad example.
It's a very good example.
It's a useful example of escalation management when NNY prompts the second officer to step in, effectively giving an opportunity to reassess the situation before it develops further into a potential complaint or civil claim. The underlying point being raised is that detaining someone without a solid, clearly articulated legal basis carries significant risk for the force if the justification cannot be properly supported. However, the sergeant appears focused on obtaining personal details without clearly establishing the legal grounds for doing so. In UK policing, reasonable suspicion must be based on objective facts indicating a specific offence, rather than assumption or uncertainty. That threshold is not flexible and must be clearly met before intrusive powers are used.
The example of someone driving along.
No, because there's legislation.
As
in 163.
But as an equivalent thing,
yeah,
you're using a piece of machinery which should be registered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
And I just want to check that the registration is valid.
And unless you suspect me of an offence, you cannot ask me to land it, and you cannot ask for the operator's ID. Those are the two things you cannot do.
I didn't ask you to land it.
I know you didn't, but I'm just saying those are the two things you can't do.
But I should
unless you suspect me of an offence.
Operator ID is valid.
If you suspect me of an offence.
No, because otherwise, how can I check that operator ID is valid? And if you won't show the operator ID is valid, then I potentially suspect it's just a false operator ID.
Yeah. Either I'm wrong and you're right, and you don't know the legislation, then you shouldn't come out. Or I'm right and you're wrong, and you don't know the legislation, and you shouldn't come out.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
So I think you've deliberately goaded people.
No.
Because we had a lot of complaints. We had multiple people coming to the station.
And not one of you said hello. What's going on? Are you okay?
I came along after
you came out.
Talking to people.
Mate, you came out in force.
No,
you came out in force. Started talking about maybe arresting me.
No, that was later on in the conversation.
It was what? Sorry.
That was later on in the conversation.
Oh,
when
really?
I was saying I couldn't confirm that their ID is correct, which I still can't. But you said that you finished and you're going to move on. So I don't feel I need to sort of.
I didn't say I was finished. I was going to move on.
He did. Sorry.
The sergeant appears stuck, repeatedly demanding credentials while not clearly identifying the legal basis that would justify the request. Authority in these situations depends on being able to point to a specific, articulable ground, typically linked to an identifiable breach of law or regulation. From the outset, the approach suggests a conclusion may have been reached before properly assessing the situation on the ground. Instead of starting with clear questions and proportional engagement, the interaction begins in a way that comes across as confrontational. When a supervising officer is unable to clearly reference the rule or power being relied upon, it undermines confidence in how the situation is being managed.
to have reasonable suspicion to suggest that I don't have an operator's ID.
Yes, but the fact that you're refusing to provide an operator's ID...
Before you ask. Before you ask.
I did ask.
No, before you ask, you have to have reasonable suspicion of an offence. Before you ask.
Right.
Not after you ask, not during the conversation, not just because I don't want to talk to you.
Right.
Before you ask, reasonable suspicion before you speak to the person. Unless they're driving a car and you've got 163, we can stop anyone for no reason.
It's just an example, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, okay.
And it's any offence though, any offence.
The issue is,
yeah.
and I'll be honest with you, is because we had so many people coming into the station office,
yeah.
we probably had multiple officers getting told about this.
Yeah.
There's offences around the drone stuff, okay?
And what offence do you think it is?
Well, like I said, would be flying a drone without the operator.
But you've already told me that you believe I've got one.
Yeah.
So now you can't go with that now. If I set off now, you couldn't go with that.
I haven't.
Okay, just let you know that I'm airspace clear, following the rules, got the required insurance and got an operator's ID.
Which is what I was asking.
So there'd be the question, did you reasonably suspect that though?
Yeah, because I was having this conversation.
Was it reasonable to suspect that someone that you've never spoke to before, never met, never inspected the drone, doesn't have an operator's ID? Is that reasonable?
Yes.
No, it's not.
So the reason why I'd say...
It's not though, is it? Go on.
Right. The reason I say it's reasonable, I say the laws have recently changed and updated. Not everybody does keep themselves au fait with the law.
The sergeant appears stuck, repeatedly demanding credentials while not clearly identifying the legal basis that would justify the request. Authority in these situations depends on being able to point to a specific, articulable ground, typically linked to an identifiable breach of law or regulation. From the outset, the approach suggests a conclusion may have been reached before properly assessing the situation on the ground. Instead of starting with clear questions and proportional engagement, the interaction begins in a way that comes across as confrontational. When a supervising officer is unable to clearly reference the rule or power being relied upon, it undermines confidence in how the situation is being managed.
I was wrong on, and it's obviously been clarified by yourself and my colleague there. Yeah?
Well, brilliant.
And while you were talking, I was quickly having a flick through, and yes, I did confirm that. Yeah. Well, I'd have to have the person's name who has actually got that operator ID.
Right.
So yeah, person. But then.
And if I didn't know the name?
Well, then, if I suspected an offence, then I'd potentially arrest in order to try and confirm that name. The arrest would be to investigate further to confirm that.
Oh, that's dirty.
And I suspect that most people who use drones actually aren't using them lawfully, sadly, because they're quite easy to
That's sad that you think that. That's really sad that you think that, and I genuinely disagree with you. I really am genuinely offended, and I'm sure there will be many people online that are also offended.
If you're being offended as a drone user, then I think there's elements of offence that you need to kind of reconsider.
I mean, there's a massive community that will definitely disagree with you.
I'm sure there's a massive
and will
community.
be genuinely offended that a police sergeant thinks that the majority of drone flights are unlawful. The National Police Chief Council have even said the majority of flights are lawful, and we want to facilitate those lawful flights, but counter the unlawful flights.
Yeah.
This is not an unlawful flight. I've not even taken off.
Multiple people that said you were flying a drone.
But you'd not seen it. Just because someone said it doesn't mean it's true. You should probably go speak to those people and say, why did you lie to me?
Well, I've got no reason to say they did lie to me. However, we've discussed it with you, so we've bottomed out that.
But I wasn't flying.
Okay.
So multiple people have told you I was flying, is that what you said?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
So they've lied to you. You all need to shut up and get back in the station.
Watching the supervising officer refer to his phone to double-check facts suggests uncertainty around the applicable legal framework. In a senior role, a clear understanding of the relevant regulations is expected, particularly when making decisions that affect members of the public. The approach taken appears to be based on an assumption that the flight activity was inherently improper, rather than a clear reference to specific legal restrictions or aviation rules. Guidance from bodies such as the National Police Chiefs Council does in fact recognize that lawful drone operation and public filming can take place in appropriate circumstances. However, alleging wrongdoing requires a proper evidential basis. Claims that someone has deliberately misled police could, in certain circumstances, engage provisions relating to wasting police time under the Criminal Law Act 1967, but this depends on proving a knowingly false report rather than disagreement over an interpretation of events. Overall, the concern raised is that focus appeared to remain on the drone operator despite uncertainty around the underlying complaint, rather than first fully verifying the reliability of the initial report.